start loads and they get up to loads of development as well. We've tried to make him into a man. We turned him into a county councillor a couple of months ago, and next year we intend to turn him into a TD. Cllr Ruairí Ó Murchú.
Good Tomás. Tá má anbuchas an choirú seo chun cainteanniu ag an Commemoration speisialta ag Jennifer Cibnacán óglach Keith Rodgers. I realise that the weather conditions are far from perfect, so I'll try not to hold people too long. Don't worry, there aren't that many pages and the font is very big. Alright. I'd like to make a special acknowledgement of the people who braved the elements and the weather warnings and did the 5K. I'd also like at this time we would keep Paddy Agnew in our thoughts. He suffered a serious head injury the other day and was hospitalised. The news is that he is improving at the moment, and so we wish him and Catherine well. There is a general convention I have both witnessed and occasionally used as regards commemorations, and that is to talk of how it is an honour to be asked to speak and to remember the Republican dead, of which unfortunately there are far too many. These sentiments are very true. It is an honour to not only remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice, but also to do it in the presence of their family, friends and comrades. But for me, this particular commemoration has a particular personal significance, and so it is truly beyond an honour. Keith, like many others from the North Louth and South Armagh area and throughout the rest of Ireland, took the decision to join the IRA. This was a resolution determined by Irish history with its litany of injustices, a sense of right, and most of all, by British occupation and misrule. Unfortunately, like many others in recent and not so recent history, this decision led, unfortunately, to his death in Cllr 15 years ago. His death was a tragedy for his family, this community, this area, and for the Republican movement. I don't want to speak long of those that killed him. These people and their fellow travellers put themselves outside this community. They are no different than criminal elements and collaborating forces that have impeded communities and liberation movements throughout Irish history. They do not deserve more mention other than they will never win and we can never allow it. But for me, unlike other commemorations, I'm similar to many of the people here in that I knew Keith Rodgers. He was someone I knew well. He was someone I was proud to have as a friend. I met Keith when we were teenagers. I met him through Eddie Laverty, who was in my class in secondary school. So unfortunately for Keith, not only was he encumbered by having Eddie grow up beside him, but now I got introduced to the mix. Keith was a good fella. He was good company. Actually, he was great company. He was funny, not as funny as he thought he was, definitely funnier than I thought he was, but he was self-assured. He never had anything to prove, which couldn't always be said of some of us. There are a number of people here of my own age bracket, youngish, like Paddy, James Owen, Sean, Ronan, and even some more elderly gentlemen like Kieran, Brian and Porrick, who all have daft stories involving Keith and ourselves. He had many groups of friends and was really well liked. And all of us can be very glad that this was in a period before video phones. But in all seriousness, Keith, for a young fella, was always in control of himself, wouldn't let himself down. There was a serious side to Keith. He was a reasonable footballer and was very proud of the local Naomh Malachy team. I don't think he was as good a footballer as Martin was. He was definitely a better footballer than Legs or Rodney, but nowhere near as good as Legs now makes out that he was. But I think Ding, Mihal and the rest of the Malachys will agree, what Keith may have lacked in speed, he made up for in tenacity and doggedness. Now, they will probably say that he could have made it to training more often. Also, another Republican from Louth has long claimed to me that in a fairly rough tackle on the football field, Keith was responsible for his broken nose, but I've told him that he is mistaken. Keith to me was a really good representative of the best traits of republicanism. Keith was someone you could rely on, no matter what the situation. He was someone who could assess a problem soberly and come up with a well-worked solution. And though he was slightly younger than me, he was someone who you would look up to and whose counsel you would seek out. He was dedicated, committed and believed in the Republican objectives. In this period, 30 years since the Republican movement in this area lost Brendan Moley and Brendan Burns, and since the SAS execution of Mairead Farrell, Sean Savage and Dan McCann in Gibraltar, Keith was of this tradition, but not only of this tradition, but of that stock of people who stepped forward and were willing to put it all on the line to bring about a just and equitable 32-county republic. Nobody could answer as to what exactly Keith would think of present conditions, but he had a genuine respect for Republican leaders in this area and further afield. I can guess he would have had little difficulty with Republicans demanding equality and legitimate rights. He would not have had any truck with a 26-county establishment he knew had on many times colluded with British forces in Ireland. I can also be fairly sure he wouldn't have found the possibility of border checks and installations on the border, which Brexit and the British government seem to promise, to be in any way acceptable. Keith and others are owed a debt by Republicans, which requires fulfilment of the Republican goal. I will finish by extending our sympathy to Teresa and Martin, Michelle, her children and all his family, friends and comrades. The reality is, Keith is someone you and we can all be proud of. Cllr Ruairí Ó Murchú.
Cllr Ruairí. Before we break up, I'd just like to remind people, Ruairí is our candidate in the North Louth end of this constituency to make sure we continue to return 2 TDs for Sinn Féin. And I'd ask people when we get into the hall to talk to local common members, make sure that we have your contact details, make sure that we can call upon you to help make history and continue to make history in this constituency of Louth and East Meath. It's hard to think that in 2 weeks' time it's Easter. Feels like it should be Christmas. But I'm asking everybody as well to make it your business to be sure of the details and the arrangements for all the Easter commemorations that are taking place throughout the Louth, Armagh, Monaghan areas. I'd like to congratulate everybody who took part in the sponsored walk/run for Down Syndrome Ireland today. And I'd like to welcome everybody into the hall where Matt Kane has the kettle on, and I hope a bowl of soup as well. Cllr Ruairí Ó Murchú, my show.